Okay, I guess some of you have heard of Kanan Gill. Yes. So just in case there's any confusion, I'm not Kanan Gill. I mean, yeah, we're both stand-up comedians, just that one of us is taller, sexier, better looking. The other one is Kanan Gill. I would be happier if you didn't laugh at that, all right? Now, I'll be honest, one of the most common questions that we often get is, why do you do stand-up comedy? And what I'd want to tell you is that, it's to make people laugh. That's what I've always wanted to do. That making people laugh, making them happy is something that gives me happiness. That when I see that smile on your face, it gives me emotional satisfaction. And I can also tell you this, that whenever two comedians see another comedian giving an answer like that, we both turn to each other and laugh because we know it's a complete load of bull crap, all right? I mean, let's put a smile on that face. It's something that a psychopathic villain says, not a stand-up. If you honestly ask a stand-up comedian why we do this, it's because this is one field where for all that effort, you get instant validation. When 300 people laugh at that new joke which you were sure is going to bomb, it gives you an amazing satisfaction. You know what, I'm going to step out and say it. It's better than sex. See, those who are not laughing clearly don't have the data to validate my head. But I'll also be honest about one thing, it's not always just the validation of the audience. It's the validation of our close and loved ones that gives us even more stress, Like, do our friends think we are funny on stage? Does my girlfriend think I'm funny? She said no. She's now my ex-girlfriend. The two are not related, all right? I'm not that petty, guys. We also often get this question, did your parents support you in this, So guys, let's be honest, okay? We're talking about Indian parents, okay? If you tell your parents you're quitting banking to go to comedy, okay? If they don't send you for therapy or to a tantric, it means they support you. Right? That's about the best that you can hope for, all right? Don't expect too much. But guys, I'll be honest, I used to have these anxious moments. There was this time when I took my mom to a show where Rohan Joshi and Vipul Goyal were performing. And she found it great. And I really wanted to ask her, Mom, your son also does the same thing. Does that make you proud? Do you think I'm as funny as these guys? I had that moment. Because guys, I'll tell you something. See, my mom's been supportive, yes. I mean, things are going good now. But when things were really hard, at the start when you struggle, I don't know, maybe she didn't say it loud. I'm sure she had her doubts as well. Whether I'll make this a lucrative career, or even more disturbingly, whether she thinks I'm funny or not. Because honestly, she's funnier than me on Facebook. I recently put up a joke on Facebook that Martin Luther King said, I had a dream. And Indian parents are like, chup chap engineering karo. To which my mom replied, after MBA, I put, I have a dream. Indian parents chup chap shadi karo. And her post actually got more laughs than mine, all right? In fact, guys, this is the reason why we often don't tell our friends to come and sit on the front row. Because see, we can face failure and silence from strangers. But when we see that same, silence from people who we know, we have to go back and meet them afterwards. And that is much harder to deal with. And also because your friends know you better than most people and they'll ruin all your punchlines. I start a show with, guys, I'm a middle class guy. No, bro, you're from South Bombay. In fact, it once happened to me, a girl actually swiped right on me on Tinder, okay? Really good looking. But then she came for a show and she sat on the front row and she didn't laugh. I was like, I wish you had rejected me on Tinder instead. That would have hurt a lot less, If I were to give you an analogy about comedy, I'd say it's a lot like cricket. You might have 10,000 runs or 100 shows behind you, but every single time you step on that pitch, you start from zero. And you have that same nervousness till you score your first run, your first laughter, you're always nervous. And yes, you come with a prepared script, you have a game plan in mind. But at that moment, you will always respond to the bowling or to the environment. Sorry, it's just echoing a little. Yeah. You'll always respond to the environment, to the bowling, and to the conditions. And yes, sometimes you'll have great days where even the bad joke gets a lot of laugh, sometimes when the edge goes to the boundary. But sometimes you will have those days when even your best jokes will get a response. So I thought this is a stand-up comedy show. This looks more like a TED talk. This happens as well. And, I think a typical inspirational talk, we all know that template, right, of a typical inspirational, motivational talk. Nobody wants to hear a story about I started well and I started doing even better, right? Nobody likes to hear a story of just positive achievements. If I tell you, yes, I was poor and fat, and my father used to beat me with Pokemons. And that's why I took up comedy. What a story, right? Do you know why we reject that story? Because we know in real life it's not possible to have just success. There's always struggle. Because nothing in life that is worth having comes easy. But see, the thing is that I've already spoken about the struggles of comedy in another TED talk. I've already spoken about that. Maybe one struggle I haven't spoken about is the constant pressure to always be funny. People expect you to be funny off stage as well. This one time I went for a wedding in Calcutta, and nobody spoke to me for 3 days. Because every time somebody came up to me like, hey, tell us a joke, I didn't want to, so they never spoke to me after that. It's quite ridiculous. But another question that I want to ask, which I'm really confused about is that, why am I here? Why have you called me? Is it because I'm a stand-up comedian? Because I'm a successful stand-up comedian? I don't know what determines success. The maximum number of laughs, the maximum number of hits on YouTube, or the maximum number of FIRs filed against you? What makes for a successful stand-up? Why did you call me? Would you have called me if I was an AVP debt syndication for short-term working capital finance, Western Region Thane branch? I don't know why there's laughter at Thane, but I'll go with it. And then people tell me, it's because Vikram, you quit investment banking to take up comedy. So I quit something sure to take up something uncertain. You shouldn't be cheering me on, you should be putting me in therapy. And yet you've called me here and people say, no, Vikram, you took a risk. You had the guts to do this. I never had the guts. You had the guts to do this. Of course, in real life, they don't say guts. They use another word which I can't say at a TEDx talk. They say you took a risk. But what if I were to dispel this whole romantic notion around what I've done and say, no, it wasn't really a risk, that what I took was a very logical and rational decision? What if I told you that in an investment banking job, I saw entire divisions laid off overnight? That I speak to a lot of my friends in media, and a lot of them are shutting down and laying off people. And if you work in an MNC bank, it's just a complete, crazy fest that happens out there. 2008, we are entering India. 2009, we are exiting India. 2010, now let's do the lungi dance for Casual Friday. That's the kind of, struggle that they have. Nothing is clear. I think about in my business, yes, I have those moments. Okay, this month there hasn't been any earning shows. So I tell myself, no problem. We'll just work a little harder, promote ourselves a little more, put one more video out on Facebook. I'll get 2 corporate shows, I'm sorted. But in this other job, I found that I'm entirely dependent, my career, my earning, my entire life could be dependent on the whims and fancies of another boss whose mind just keeps changing. More often than Arvind Kejriwal. See, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say that one is better than the other. All I'm saying is that maybe we need to relook our perception of what is safety and what is risky. That I didn't really take a risky decision as much as I took as one which was backed by logic. All I did is I decided to focus on my strength and cater to a niche. And that is very much how the idea of boardroom comedy was born. A lot of people often ask me, why corporate humor? Office is supposed to be this boring place, right, where nobody laughs. I'll be honest, a lot of comedians don't like doing corporate shows. They say we just do it for the money because nobody laughs, there's no passion, that audience is not interested at all. And I tell them, no, they're just real people, just like you and me, the same people that come to a Canvas Laugh Club. The only difference is in office, they have to wear a mask. Because they are scared, because everything is being watched and judged. They are scared to be themselves. And when you come there as a corporate comedian, what happens is that you're able to take off this mask. Because I am able to tell them that, hey guys, I've been there. I know what lies beneath the mask, you can't hide, but it's okay, I'm one of you. And we take off that mask, and we address everything that really happens in the corporate world, we joke about it. And nobody gets offended, because we're all like one family, just cracking a common joke about what happens internally. And just for those 30 minutes when we do a show or a workshop, all the masks are gone. And this cuts across hierarchy, bosses, sub-bosses, interns, one of those most deprived category of humanity. Everybody laughs at the same joke. And everybody comes on one platform. And that pretty much is how the idea of boardroom comedy went forward. We do something called clowning, for corporates. And I can tell you that clowning is this very, very deep inhibition dropping exercise. where we take you back into your child state. Remember as children, you didn't have any inhibitions? You just go and play with anybody, okay, you just say, okay, I like that toy, all right, let's play together. You didn't see their degrees or where they come from or whether they're from Thane or whatever. It was that easy. And they say that the clown nose is the world's smallest mask. Not because it hides your true persona, but once you put it on, it brings out the real you, it brings out the real person inside. It's like they say about Batman, right? That's not really his mask. His real mask is Bruce Wayne. Because the real person actually is Batman. All we do in these workshops and these shows is, for a few moments, we allow everyone to become Batman, and we allow people to connect. And it's played out pretty well. If I were to ask, okay, why boardroom comedy? I would say it allows me to do everything that I liked about corporate life and just ignore the stuff that I didn't like. I always wanted to do workshops for senior management. I wanted to do training workshops. Now, if I'd gone by the traditional route, I would have had to work a lot. I would have had to work for 7-8 years. I would have had to show certification. People would ask, what are your certifications? Nobody asks for certification from a stand-up comedian. If you're funny, they just take you on board. Just like you guys, I guess. And that allowed us to kind of cut through and do a lot of things that we wanted to do. I always wanted to do advertising. I always wanted to do marketing, create ad campaigns. Again, I would have had to struggle as a copywriter for many years. Again, another ignored part of humanity is copywriters, I guess, after interns. And we were able to directly work with clients like Motilal Oswal, Urban Clap, and Titan to create marketing campaigns, and comedy allowed us to do that. I always wanted to, just be a keynote speaker at a big conference. And we recently, last year, we did something called the Economic Times Startup Awards, where we had all the biggest people. We had Evan Spiegel, the founder of Snapchat. We also had Miranda Kerr, so nobody looked at Evan Spiegel for too long. And we also had Pete Lau, the founder of OnePlus. Now, I remember while introducing him, there was this one line that we used, that Pete Lau is one of the most amazing entrepreneurs. Everybody wants to know what his ideas are, and everybody wants to ask him a lot of questions. But there's one question I want to ask Pete that all of us want to ask him. Hey, Pete, do you have a OnePlus to invite? Now, the point is, I didn't even care if this joke is funny or not. I said, boardroom comedy allowed me to ask this question, which probably only 10 people in the world would ever get to ask him. It kind of allowed us to do that. I mean, effectively, I'm going to be honest about this. It's not like I've had a stellar corporate career. I've had a lot of struggles. If you look at my career, I was in consulting, then I was in in-flight entertainment, then I was in investment banking, now I'm doing comedy. Very logical career progression. And this was actually a challenge when I was looking for jobs. People used to look at my CV and say, there's no clarity, what are you doing? I thought I may not get another job after that, because people said, what, you'll do well in sales, but your CV scares me. But today, the same crazy logical career progression is my opening joke. And the reason that we're able to do so many shows for different kind of companies is because we work with so many industries, so we can do jokes on every possible industry. So all I'm saying is that in some way, everything that was a weakness, everything that was a frustrating, aspect of corporate life is today allowing us to make great jokes on the same thing. I want to tell you one thing also on a more personal note. See guys, I have a slight visual disability. I have a bit of a squint in my left eye. So I often avoid audience interaction because people just get confused, who the hell am I talking to? And it gets me in a lot of trouble. Somebody once told me, there's this famous Indian expression, in the land of the blind, the squint-eyed man is the king. I took it seriously. I went to the National Association of the Blind and I told them, your king has arrived. Now, a lot of people would think this is a visual disability and something to hide, but a lot of comedians are like, I wish I had the squint so I could do the same jokes. And it's the same thing that happened, that whatever is a weakness actually turned to a strength. And that same thing when translated into boardroom comedy became what is our business line. So I just want to leave you with this one thought is that, look, if you can find something that turns all your weaknesses into a strength, then guys, that is the business that you want to be in. Just don't compete with my business, all right? My name is Vikram Poddar. I hope you guys have had an interesting session. Thank you.